All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you all for showing up this morning to officially welcome back Kelly Krauskopf as President of Basketball Business Operations for the Indiana.
This was not anticipated by anyone. The quiet part was finally said aloud by the Indiana Fever president, who was sat at the top of the entire organization. Her remarks raised eyebrows and stirred up the entire basketball music community. For the first time, the realities of that franchise, music, politics, pressure, locker room dynamics, and the struggle between creating a champion and a brand were exposed. Everything you believed to be true about Caitlin Clark's circumstances in Indiana is altered when you learn the full story. Let's now return to the beginning of this tale. Indiana was one of the least well-known teams in professional basketball prior to Caitlin Clark ever donning a Hoosier uniform. 6 victories in 2021, 5 in 2022, and 13 in 2023 are being discussed. They were a joke for almost a decade. No spotlight, no buzz, no fans. There wouldn't be any cameras. The chairs weren't being filled. Whatever the fever had been, the WNBA scene had drastically shifted. That was the truth. A once proud franchise was neglected. But despite their best efforts, nobody in that front office could have anticipated what transpired. When the first overall pick in the 2024 WNBA draft entered the room, everything changed. Caitlin Clark not only lowered the temperature but also altered the league as a whole. Everywhere she performed, the crowds were completely sold out. Jerseys flying off the racks, record-breaking TV ratings, and a media frenzy that, to be honest, had never been witnessed in women's basketball since music. In the middle of that eruption, the organization had to make a choice. Would they attempt to change the direction of the wave or ride it? At that moment, the entire tale becomes fascinating because the front office made a move that stunned many people, and the Fever needed someone at the top who realized exactly what they had, a once-in-a-generation athlete who was single-handedly altering what was possible for women's sports. Kelly Krauskopf was appointed as their new president of business operations and basketball. It made sense on paper. Krauskopf had previously created the Fever, was a member of the team that won the 2012 championship, and had first-hand knowledge of the organization. The group introduced her with all the excitement that was expected. However, something in the rhetoric of her first news conference brought up difficulties that many at the time chose to ignore, but that would later come back to destroy the entire company months later. No one noticed the warning signs until it was too late since they were concealed in plain sight. At this time, everything fell apart. July 2025, Caitlin Clark's injury-related absence is causing problems for the Fever. Due to a groin problem that has been plaguing her for weeks, Clark has only participated in 11 games this season. Fans are irritated. The team is on the verge of making it to the postseason. There is increasing pressure. On the same day that the video from Krauskopf's first press conference inexplicably resurfaces on social media, the internet unearths a speech from October 2024 that most people had completely missed. During the press conference, Krauskopf looked directly into the cameras and declared, "This is about the Indiana Fever. Indeed, Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark are our core performers, and we intend to continue developing them. But I want this team to be a long-lasting brand, like Apple, and a national leader. A firm like Apple, in 5 words. That was all that was required." Since many people didn't hear that vision in that statement, the video went viral in a matter of hours, and the fanbase quickly expanded. It served as a caution. In the Fever front office, such a response was unheard of. Fans were not just angry but also well-organized, boisterous, and hard to ignore. Because of what Apple actually accomplished, the comparison to Apple struck a different chord. One visionary, Steve Jobs, was the foundation of their entire identity, and when he left, the company all but fell apart. Clark supporters therefore perceived something in the Fever president's use of that precise analogy as telling, as though the organization already viewed Clark as an element rather than the primary emphasis. A fan responded to enduring brands that align with their values on social media. Steve Jobs, the company's star and visionary, is credited with making Apple a global icon. Another fan didn't hold back either. When Clark eventually decides she's had enough of the front office dumpster fire, the Fever will acknowledge that they wasted the greatest opportunity in women's sports history. The answers, comment sections, and message boards all expressed the same basic sentiment. You don't minimize the most significant player this team has ever had, and you keep focusing on her. There was more to the criticism than just noise. A few hours after the video went viral, Krauskopf's entire account disappeared. A few days prior, there had merely been a social media presence. Someone in that organization made the decision, and they were aware of how dire things were becoming. There was quiet in place of a message or an explanation. The players on the court, the ones who actually suit up next to Caitlin Clark every night, were telling a completely different and far more honest story while the front staff was being demonized online. This is where things become even more difficult. When Lexi Hull, one of Clark's closest friends, applied for a story in Glamour magazine, she had nothing. Although virtually no one in a Fever uniform had previously been willing to reveal, Hull said that everyone in the league already knew. Because of the media attention and the people who have supported us since Caitlin arrived, I believe there is some jealousy regarding the Fever. She went one step further and disclosed that teams from across the league had been publicly discussing things like, "We can't let the Fever win," in their own locker rooms. Hull's remarks revealed a disturbing truth that had been developing for the previous 2 seasons. These days, the Fever do more than simply play hoops. Every time they play, opposing teams target them because of a single member of their team rather than the team's performance as a whole. Sophie Cunningham went one step farther. The player who established herself as Clark's enforcer on the floor and made it obvious early on that taking cheap shots at her teammate would have consequences had already come for her SE. She faced it head-on. She wasn't upset. She didn't act defensively. She was remarkably composed about it. You essentially grow accustomed to people believing they are aware of what occurs behind closed doors when, in fact, they are not. She continued to receive encouragement from her co-workers in that locker area. During the 2025 playoffs, Clark's teammates flooded the floor once she recovered from her injuries. They ended her interview after the game. They unexpectedly appeared for her. There was a huge celebration in the locker room when the Fever won the Commissioner Cup. The players' bonding, laughter, and genuine joy for one another didn't read like a show. The media hasn't yet compiled this information. Whether or if Caitlin Clark's teammates liked her was never the main subject of the Fever narrative. It concerned whether the front office, which was in charge of them all, was prepared to surround her with the required elements and give the project their full attention. Aaliyah's ties at the court level were genuine, which explains the disparity. Boston, Clark, and music were good friends. Lexi Hull was wary. Before they had even played a game together, Sophie Cunningham and other new players were swooning over Clark. The rookie who made the final roster, Michaela Timpson, respected Clark in a way that is difficult to duplicate. Following the expansion draft, Clark posted a message to 2 of her teammates on Instagram, saying, "Cub, I love you. My Aussie for life," for Chloe Bibiway and Christy Wallace. The love was sincere. These were genuine connections. However, winning titles requires more than just contacts. And at the center of it all was that tension. In addition to the Apple sound clip, Kelly Krauskopf's remarks at the October 2024 press conference included something that many people overlooked in their haste to express their disapproval. Krauskopf was referring to the long game when she stated that she wanted the Fever to be a lasting brand. When Indiana won its lone championship in 2012, Caitlin Clark was 10 years old. She added that sometimes it takes a generation to go to the next level. Perhaps the group had been working for someone else all along, sowing the seeds for a 10-year-old someplace who would find inspiration in what the Fever was doing at the time. Depending on how you interpret the real priorities of the front office, you may see that as either vision or deception. However, this cannot be disputed. Due to a brand, fans who attended the Fever beginning in 2024 did not show up. They arrived as a result of a player. They spent hours at a time behind the wheel. They received monies that the WNBA had never seen before. The league had never anticipated the amount of spectators. Additionally, ticket sales decreased when Clark's injuries prevented him from playing in ways that could be quantified, recorded, and publicly acknowledged. TV viewing declined. It was impossible to deny the brutal reality of what Clark represented to that franchise. However, the organization's top-level message consistently mentioned the team, the institution, and the brand, as though the person garnering all of that attention was somehow apart from it. Krauskopf made a particularly notable statement during that press conference. "You would want to play with her if you are a smart basketball player and you see how she plays," she remarked. And the Fever's recruitment prowess had subtly developed into one of the WNBA's most compelling stories, so it turned out to be more true than even she probably realized at the time. In order to travel to Indiana, players had to accept wage reductions. The chance to play alongside Clark was the deciding factor for veterans. Clark's fan base wasn't limited to crowded stadiums. Players wanted to be a part of something greater than a typical WNBA season because of the atmosphere it was fostering. The Fever had grown to be one of the league's most well-liked venues in spite of this. Not because of a brand plan, but rather because of a basketball player who packed buildings wherever she went and improved everyone around her. Now let's discuss 2026 and the Fever's upcoming projects. In the WNBA expansion draft, the team lost 2 players. Christy Wallace to Toronto and Chloe "Bibby" White to Portland. Clark herself had to put up with a season that was meant to be her breakthrough second year, but instead it was a nightmare of injuries that kept her to only 13 games in the regular season. She was chosen for the All-Star game despite averaging 16.5 points, 8 assists, and 5 rebounds a game. Despite sitting on the sidelines in civilian clothes, she remained the league's center of attention. Beneath it all, the Fever were constructing a $78 million performance facility that Krauskopf referred to as the foundation for the next generation. The music facility is intended to be the kind of home base that draws top talent for many years to come, even if it won't open until 2027. The components are in place. The concern is whether those responsible for rendering decisions above the court are aware of their options and whether they plan to act before it's too late. Beneath every argument over the Fever's headquarters, every issue with Clark's teammates, and every impassioned comment about conflict in the locker room, there is a larger reality that is actually far simpler than all of it. In just 1 year, this team went from winning 5 games a season to being the most watched team in women's basketball. This is a revolution, not a reconstruction. Furthermore, brand strategy boards do not lead to revolutions. They occur as a result of once-in-a-generation artists who give everyone around them curiosity, music, competitiveness, and entertainment value. The Fever president's ambition to create a brand like Apple was seen by fans as dangerous, and this led to a frenzy. The same risk that destroyed other franchises that attempted to replace their star with a logo. No one is more aware of the truth than the athletes in that locker room. They have seen it personally and played by it. And as proven by every moving sideline exchange and post, what they continuously say in every social media post and interview while playing with Caitlin Clark isn't simply different. This is a unique opportunity that doesn't present itself twice. Ensuring that those in charge of the organization have similar beliefs would be beneficial for the Fever.